The quarterly review for Sterling Corp always felt less like a business meeting and more like a parade of egos, especially when the family was in charge. I paused at the entrance of the enormous marble-clad boardroom on the 47th floor. My cousin, Leo, was fussing over a stack of folders on the polished mahogany table, arranging them as if they were crown jewels for a coronation. He didn't even bother to look up. "Oh, Ava," he sighed, his voice dripping with manufactured patience. "The overflow stuff? That's down the hall. Storage room, just past the supply closet. This room is for key stakeholders only." I glanced, down at my attire. A tailored cream-colored pantsuit, Dior, chosen for its sharp, deliberate lines. Tucked inside my leather satchel was a file, a slender collection of papers that held the power to completely upend this entire meeting. "Stakeholders," I repeated, a small, almost imperceptible smile playing on my lips. Leo finally looked up, a smirk spreading across his face. "Yeah, you know, actual contributors." My Aunt Eleanor, ever polished and passively venomous, chimed in. From her seat, her voice smooth as silk. "This isn't really the place for lifestyle bloggers, dear. Lifestyle blogger." That was the dismissive label they'd plastered on me 4 years ago, when I, at 31, had walked away from the suffocating confines of Sterling Corp to start what they called something silly on the side. They had no clue that this something silly had blossomed into Apex Innovations, a silent behemoth that, as of an hour ago, controlled their entire company. Leo chuckled, clearly pleased with himself. "Hope you like filing cabinets, Ava. You might be sharing your new office with the janitor today." He didn't know that just an hour earlier, my assistant Chloe had sent a discreet message. "Apex has acquired the final 4%. You're at 51% control of Sterling Corp through the network of shell companies and trusts. All confirmed." And they definitely had no idea that I was Apex. "We're starting in 10 minutes, Eleanor announced, her eyes glinting with a predatory light. "I'm presenting the Davies deal myself. The Davies deal, an $80 million tech firm." I nearly laughed out loud. Mr. Davies, CEO of that very firm, had called me personally just yesterday, finalizing the acquisition agreement directly with Apex Innovations. They were shaking hands with a ghost, completely unaware of whose hand. It truly was. "So how's the hustle treating you, Ava?" Leo asked, his concern as fake as the plant in the corner. "Still renting that tiny shoebox office down by the river?" That shoebox was, in fact, the discreet entry point to one of Apex Innovations' portfolio accelerators. My actual headquarters? A 5-story glass-walled innovation hub overlooking Lake Michigan, complete with a rooftop helipad and a private floor for our global partners. "I get by," I said, offering a polite, neutral smile as I adjusted the strap of my briefcase. "Storage rooms that way, dear," Aunt Eleanor chirped again, gesturing dismissively down the hall. "Let's try to keep distractions to a minimum. This is a serious meeting." I nodded once, a silent acknowledgement, and walked down the corridor. Not as the overlooked niece, the family disappointment they imagined, but as the majority stakeholder of the very entity they were desperately trying to save. "We've got real business on the table today," Eleanor called after me, her voice echoing slightly. I stepped into the so-called storage room, closing the door gently behind me. The air was stale, thick with the smell of old paper and forgotten ambitions. It was cramped, filled with dusty promotional banners and unopened boxes of printer toner. A perfect, almost poetic reflection of how they viewed me. Irrelevant, pushed, aside, boxed up. 5 years ago, I had stood where Eleanor was standing now, presenting quarterly vision decks, trying to build investor confidence, fighting to drag Sterling Corp into the modern age. I was 30 then, still naively believing in the sanctity of family legacy. Then I'd found the files. The real files. Reports detailing unsafe supplier practices tucked away in complex tax footnotes. Evidence of bribery disguised as consulting fees. Fraudulent environmental reports glossed over as minor, easily rectified infractions. I took them straight to my uncle, Marcus, the patriarch. He'd barely blinked. "That's the cost of staying competitive, Ava," he'd said, his tone patronizing. "If these things bother you, maybe you're not cut out for executive material." So, I walked. I used the inheritance my mother, Clara Hayes, had left me, money she'd earned through her own brilliance before marrying into the Sterling Empire, and I founded Apex Innovations in her name. "Legacy," she once told me, "is what you build when no one is watching." And I did. Ethically, strategically, quietly. While Sterling Corp began to rot from the inside, hidden behind a veneer of polished mahogany and old money, Apex expanded. We rebuilt what companies like theirs had broken. I wasn't here for a family reunion. I was here to reclaim everything they thought I'd abandoned. Sterling Corp was bleeding. Key clients were jumping ship. Revenue had flatlined. Market confidence was a distant memory. They didn't realize their only lifeline was about to be thrown by the person they'd just sent to the closet. I settled myself between a stack of forgotten filing cabinets and a box of old branded mugs, flipping open my laptop. Through the thin drywall, I could hear the meeting begin. Eleanor was laughing a little too loudly, trying to charm. Leo was flexing his vocabulary, trying to sound important. "Mr. Davies, we're extremely optimistic about your alignment with our long-term vision," Eleanor gushed. I almost snorted. Davies Technologies wasn't aligning with Sterling Corp. They were aligning with Apex, with me. The very proposal Eleanor thought she was presenting had already been signed, sealed, and delivered, under my name, with terms she couldn't even imagine. My phone vibrated. "Chloe, legal is on standby, proxy votes confirmed, board leadership aligned. Just give the word." Glanced up at the buzzing fluorescent light overhead. How fitting. In this dusty, forgotten room where they'd stashed their irrelevant niece, I was about to dismantle their entire world. Another ping. Chloe again. "Mr. Davies asks if you want him to continue playing along, or if he should drop the act now." Typed back quickly. "Let it play out a little longer. But make sure he doesn't sign anything Eleanor hands him." Right then, the storage room door creaked open. It was Sophia, Uncle Marcus's third wife, barely older than me, draped head to toe in a designer label I knew Apex had recently acquired a stake in. Her voice was the kind you heard on those reality TV shows. "You can't close the door completely," she said, not a hint of a please or thank you. "Your typing is echoing in the hallway." I offered a serene smile. "Of course, my apologies." She swept out, completely oblivious that her ironclad prenup had already been flagged, analyzed, and its potential liabilities secured by one of Apex's legal subsidiaries, along with documented evidence of certain questionable financial activities that could make things very awkward for her. We liked to be thorough. Through the slight gap in the door, I heard Marcus begin. "Welcome, everyone," he boomed, his voice radiating false confidence. "Sterling Corp is excited to explore select strategic alliances." Strategic alliances. Translation: We're drowning. Please, someone, throw us money. The truth was, Sterling Corp was over $200 million in the red. The only thing keeping them from immediate collapse was the impending, and in their minds, Sterling-led Davies deal, and ironically, me. And I wasn't here to save them in the way they hoped. I was here to take over. Coincidentally, that was exactly what Apex Innovations had offered, under very specific, non-negotiable terms. I glanced at my screen. Sterling Corp's stock had dipped another 2.1% since the market opened. Right on cue. Eleanor's voice, sparkling with that fake enthusiasm, was wrapping up her pitch to Mr. Davies. "And with Mr. Davies' support," she declared triumphantly, "we'll be able to scale our operations across the Midwest Tech Quarter and far beyond." Then came his voice, measured, calm, and clear. "Actually, Mr. Davies said, his tone polite but firm. I'm not here for that proposal. Silence. I could practically hear Eleanor's perfectly applied lipstick crack. I'm sorry, she stammered. But this was arranged through Sterling Corp. It was, Mr. Davies replied, smoothly. But as of this morning, Apex Innovations now holds a controlling interest in Sterling Corp. They also hold significant positions in several of your key partner firms, including my own. That's absurd, Marcus barked, his voice losing its earlier boom. We would know if someone was buying us out. I stood up, smoothed the lapel of my ivory blazer, and gently pushed open the storage room door. Would you? I asked, stepping into the stunned boardroom. The air crackled. Like you knew your safety audits were being systematically forged? Or that your subcontractors in Jakarta are currently under investigation for severe wage theft? Or perhaps that your biggest clients have already signed exclusive contracts with a firm that, unlike Sterling, actually values transparency? A heavy, shocked silence fell over the room. Every head turned. And for the first time in 5 long years, they didn't see the niece who quit, the lifestyle blogger. They saw the woman who now owned their company. Eleanor's cheeks went ghost white. Leo dropped the ridiculously expensive gold-plated pen he always flaunted like a scepter. Uncle Marcus stiffened, his mouth slightly agape, caught somewhere between utter disbelief and the horrifying, creeping realization of what was unfolding. There must be some mistake, Marcus finally managed, though his voice lacked any real conviction. He was hoping, praying. What is this? I offered a calm, almost beatific smile and stepped fully into the room, my heels clicking softly on the marble tile. Perhaps, I said, my voice even and clear. We should start this meeting again. After all, it's not exactly proper corporate etiquette to leave your majority shareholder in the storage room, is it? The room remained plunged in stunned silence. I walked to the head of the massive table, the seat Marcus always occupied, and calmly placed my briefcase down. A quiet, deliberate click echoed as the latches opened. Apex Innovations, I began, watching Marcus's jaw clench tighter with every syllable, now holds 51% of Sterling Corp stock. No one spoke. No one dared to breathe. We also control the majority position in 3 of your 5 core suppliers. We've secured your primary financing line. And, as of this morning, we have exclusive contracts with over 80% of your top-tier clients. That's impossible, Eleanor stammered, her composure finally shattering. Apex Innovations is run by me, I said, my voice cutting through her disbelief like a scalpel. It has been since the day I left Sterling Corp 5 years ago. Not that any of you bothered to notice. You were all far too busy rearranging numbers on a spreadsheet and posturing in boardrooms to see who was quietly, methodically, buying your entire future out from underneath you. Leo was the first to sputter. But you're a freelancer. You work out of some tiny rented space downtown. I allowed myself another small smile. One of our agile research hubs, yes. My actual office is in the Sterling Tower. Oh, wait. No, that's this building, isn't it? My mistake. My office is in the Apex Tower. You know, the one that literally casts a shadow over this building every afternoon? I connected my laptop to the main screen at the front of the room. Suddenly, it wasn't Eleanor's optimistic and entirely fictional projections on display. It was stark, cold reality. Charts showing declining revenue, surging legal risks, and a client list that was vanishing like smoke. Let's begin, shall we? I said. Since I left Sterling, your stock has plummeted by 60%. You're currently under an EPA investigation, and I believe the Department of Labor is preparing subpoenas as we speak. Now wait just a minute, Marcus blustered, attempting to regain some semblance of control. I have been waiting, I said, my voice sharp, decisive. While you were grooming Eleanor and Leo to whitewash internal reports and silence whistleblowers, I was building something that actually works. Mr. Davies gave a quiet, almost imperceptible nod from his seat. That's why our contract ultimately went to Apex, he stated. They have a code of ethics, and they adhere to it. Ethics don't pay. The payroll, Ava, Eleanor snapped, though her voice was cracking, betraying her fear. Actually, I said, advancing the slide on the screen, they do. Apex's profit margins are currently 30% above the industry average. It turns out that when you respect your workers, your vendors, and the law, the returns tend to come back with interest. I had Chloe, who had silently entered and stood near the door, distribute neatly labeled folders. Inside each of these, I explained, is Apex Innovations' proposal for Sterling Corp's future. We are prepared to inject $200 million in capital, the for exact figure your latest quarterly reports indicated you desperately needed. Marcus's eyes narrowed. His businessman's instincts, dulled by years of complacency, were finally kicking in. And what do you want in return? Control, I said evenly. Full operational authority. The Sterling family, that's you, will retain 20% ownership as passive shareholders, but all executive decisions, from this moment forward, will go through Apex's board. I let that sink in before adding, which means this company and this family are about to undergo some significant changes. Leo let out a brittle, disbelieving laugh. You're bluffing. Eleanor, tell her she can't do this. She's not bluffing. Mr. Sterling, Mr. Davies interjected calmly. Ms. Hayes holds 51% of the stock. With the proxy votes already secured and tallied, she effectively controls this company. She is entirely within her legal rights. I clicked to the next slide. It was a devastating timeline. OSHA violations, hefty fines, wrongful termination lawsuits, evidence of offshore labor abuse, 10 years of decay, meticulously documented. The choice is yours, I said, my gaze sweeping across their pale faces. Accept our proposal and let us rebuild Sterling Corp into something genuinely worthy of respect. Or you can let this entire house of cards collapse. The creditors are already circling. So is the EPA. Eleanor's lips trembled. You would destroy your own family's legacy? This isn't destruction, Aunt Eleanor, I said, my voice softening slightly but losing none of its firmness. This is redemption. Apex Innovations restores what people who prioritize profit over principle have ruined. We're just starting with our own. Uncle Marcus stood up slowly. The bluster, the anger in his eyes, hadn't entirely vanished, but something else was dawning behind it. Something that looked uncomfortably like grudging respect. You planned this, he murmured, his voice barely a whisper. All of it. The quiet. Resignation, the shell companies, the client acquisitions. You orchestrated this entire thing. I met his gaze directly, without blinking. I learned from the best, Uncle Marcus. You taught me everything I know about power plays. Then, I allowed a flicker of the old Ava, the niece he thought he knew, to surface. But you didn't teach me how to lead with integrity. That, I learned. From my mother. He flinched visibly at the mention of her name. Clara Hayes, his sister, had been the conscience of this company for years. After her passing, it hadn't taken long for her ethical vision to be systematically stripped from every boardroom agenda, until now. I slid a folder across the polished table towards him. It landed with a soft, definitive thud. The documents need to be signed today, I stated. Your creditors are not known for their patience. And, as of about 15 minutes ago, neither is the press. Eleanor clutched at Marcus's arm, her face a mask of desperation. Marcus, you can't let her do this. We'll find another investor. We have to. Can you? I tilted my head slightly. Perhaps you should all check your phones. Across the table, screens lit up almost in unison. A news alert flashed across every device. Apex Innovations declares majority ownership of Sterling Corp. Immediate restructuring imminent. Market close expected to be volatile. By the end of the day, they'd be lucky if the Sterling brand still carried any goodwill at all. The room dissolved into a cacophony of frantic whispers, vibrating phones, and darting, panicked glances. Leo collapsed into his chair, all the color drained from his face. Eleanor just blinked at her phone screen, stunned into silence. Marcus sat ramrod straight, holding the contract, and for once, he actually read it, his fingers trembling almost, imperceptibly as he reached the final page. "You'll keep the Sterling name?" he asked finally, his voice hoarse. "The name, yes," I confirmed. "But not the practices that tarnished it. It's time for Sterling Corp to stand for something more than unchecked profit and moral ambiguity." I met his gaze head-on, unwavering. He let out a long, slow breath and nodded. A single tired motion. Then, slowly, deliberately, he picked up a pen. "Wait." Eleanor's voice cracked. "What about us? What happens to us?" "Your current positions are under review," I said clearly. "However, if you are willing to adapt and learn, Apex Innovations offers comprehensive retraining in ethical governance, sustainable business practices, and transparent leadership." I paused, letting them absorb that. "Alternatively, you can walk away with your 20% equity and chart a different future. The choice is yours." "You'd really fire your own family?" Leo asked, his voice a mixture of disbelief and dawning horror. "I'd really expect them to earn their seats," I replied, my tone even. "Just like every other employee at Apex Innovations." The contracts were signed before the hour was out. As the room began to empty, a shaken and visibly diminished group of executives filtering out, Mr. Davies approached me, extending his hand. "Masterfully done, Ms. Hayes," he said, a quiet, knowing smile on his face. "Your mother would be incredibly proud." I looked across the now mostly empty boardroom. Eleanor, Leo, and Marcus lingered in a corner, silent, their shoulders slumped, the empire they had once so arrogantly ruled now slipping irrevocably through their fingers. A small part of me felt a pang of something akin to sympathy, but a much larger, more resolute part knew this wasn't just business. This was justice. The months that followed were nothing short of transformational. Sterling Corp's toxic practices were dismantled, piece by painful piece. Wages were restructured to be fair and equitable. Robust employee protections became standard operating procedure. Sustainability initiatives became genuine policy, not just PR fluff. To her credit, Eleanor surprised everyone. She enrolled in ESG, environmental, social, and governance leadership programs, earned several certifications, and, to my genuine surprise, became a valuable asset in Apex's expanding corporate responsibility division. Leo took longer to adjust, his ego bruised and battered, but eventually his natural charisma was repurposed. He now leads our community engagement arm, working to restore trust in neighborhoods where the Sterling name had once been a byword for exploitation. Marcus stepped down as CEO, as per the agreement, but remained on as a senior advisor. Over time, even he began to admit, albeit grudgingly at first, that what I had built with Apex hadn't destroyed his legacy. It had, in fact, elevated it. 1 year later, I stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of my actual office in the Apex Tower, watching the lights of downtown Chicago flicker like scattered embers across the vast skyline. In the distance, the old Sterling Corp building still stood, a familiar silhouette. But now, it bore something new beneath its name, a sleek silver seal that read, "Certified by Apex Innovations, an ethical enterprise." A quiet knock sounded at my door. "Your uncle is here for the quarterly review, Ava," Chloe said, stepping in, with a warm smile. And Eleanor just joined him in the reception area. She has the latest progress reports on the worker safety reforms in the Midwest plants. Send them in, Chloe, I replied, already turning from the window. As they entered, not into a cramped storage room, but into my office, an office built on transparency and integrity, I allowed myself a moment to reflect on just how far we had all come. Legacy, I realized with dawning clarity, isn't defined by what you're given, by the name on the building or the shares in your portfolio. It's defined by what you choose to build, by the values you uphold when no one is watching, and by the impact you have on the lives you touch. Ready to go over the numbers, Ava? Marcus asked. This time, there was no sarcasm in his voice. No condescension, just sincere, professional interest. I gestured to the large circular table at the center of my office. Always, I said, a genuine smile on my face. Have a seat. At this table, every chair is equal and every voice is valued. That, I thought, was the real difference. Under Apex's guidance, the revitalized Sterling Corp had transformed. We had clean audits, record-breaking and sustainable profits, and worker retention rates were at an all-time high. The business press stopped asking if we could balance ethics with success and started asking how we did it so consistently. And if anyone at Sterling Corp ever joked about sending someone to the storage closet again, they were quickly, and often, humorously, reminded of the day the woman relegated to the corner turned out to own the entire building. Sometimes, the clearest view of real success, the kind that lasts, begins in the shadows. You just have to know when it's your time to step out and open the door. If you've stayed with me through this story, thank you. I didn't share it for pats on the back. I shared it because I know what it feels like to be dismissed, to be underestimated, to be told in 1,000 different ways, sit quietly over there. This isn't for you. So, if my story resonates with you, even a little bit, I genuinely want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Tell me which moment struck a chord, or how you faced down your own version of that storage room. Because, here's the truth. We all grow stronger, braver, and more resilient when we share our experiences and lift each other up. And if you believe in standing tall, in speaking your truth, even when no one in the room seems to be clapping for you, then subscribe. Not for me, but for yourself. For the quiet, daily reminder that your voice matters, that your contributions are valuable, and that quiet resilience often speaks louder than any fancy title or corner office. Here's my 2 cents, for what it's worth. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for validation. Use the silence. Use the rejection. Let every door that slammed in your face be a reminder to go out and build your own damn door. A better one. And when that door is ready, swing it wide open. Step through. Not for vengeance, because that's a hollow victory, but for truth, for purpose, for the change you want to see. Because we all deserve more than just survival. We deserve to lead. We deserve to thrive. Let's keep rising. Together.